This story comes from the real experience of a man known as Mr. Bird. A story he never intended to tell, but one that stayed with him for the rest of his life. It happened many years ago, back when Mr. Bird was around 18 years old. He grew up in a family of musicians. His father was the leader of a small hired band that performed at temple events, ordinations, weddings, forest monk ceremonies, often in remote areas and often late that night. As the eldest son, Mr. Bird was raised differently. His father trained him to be brave, to not fear darkness, to not flinch at strange places or unsettling situations. Because if you worked in this line of music, fear would slow you down. Mr. Bird played the keyboard, and most nights he traveled with trucks loaded with speakers, instruments, and lighting equipment, moving from one event to the next across Nakhon Nayok province and the surrounding areas. One evening, his father's band was hired to perform at an ordination ceremony at a rural temple. The atmosphere was lively. Temple fairs in the countryside always were. Bright stage lights cut sharply against the darkness beyond their reach. The music echoed across the open grounds, mixing with laughter, chatter, and the smell of food drifting from the temporary kitchen. The stage stood in the center of the temple yard. To the left was an old two-story wooden pavilion, weathered and partially decayed. To the right stood a newer pavilion used for ceremonies. People filled the area. Everything felt normal, until Mr. Bird's stomach began to twist violently. He had eaten something earlier that didn't agree with him. At first, he tried to endure it, playing through the pain. But as the ceremony reached a break, the pressure became unbearable. He needed a restroom immediately. Scanning the area, he noticed a narrow path behind a massive wall of speakers beside the stage. The path was barely visible, swallowed by tall grass, leading toward an old restroom behind the wooden pavilion. He didn't think twice. He half walked, half ran into the darkness. The moment he stepped off the lit grounds, everything changed. The music from the stage faded into a distant hum. The air felt heavier, and the silence felt unnatural. That was when he saw a novice monk. The boy stood at an old concrete sink, its surface thick with moss and grime. He wore a faded saffron robe. His head was shaved clean. The novice was brushing his teeth vigorously, white foam overflowing from his mouth. Mr. Bird hesitated, then asked if the restroom was usable. The novice turned to look at him. His face was calm, expressionless. His eyes were strangely cold, empty almost. He nodded slightly and spoke through the foam, saying his name was Jack. Then he pointed toward one stall, a door that looked like it could still close. Inside, the restroom was dim and suffocating. The smell of dampness and decay clung to the air. There was no lock on the door, so Mr. Bird pressed his foot against it to keep it shut. while he hurried through his business. That was when he heard footsteps. Heavy, rushing. 2 men burst into the restroom area, arguing violently. One voice sounded older, angrier, shouting about missing drugs, missing money. The other voice was younger, panicked. Then came a metallic sound. Clink, clink, over and over, like someone was testing a blade. Mr. Bird froze. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure they could hear it. He held his breath. Then the sounds changed. Struggling. A sudden, sharp impact. A stabbing sound, followed by a scream, cut short by a wet, choking gurgle. Then a shout. "There's someone in the bathroom." Someone climbed, trying to peer over the stall wall. Panic took over. Mr. Bird spotted an old wooden advertisement board leaning against the wall. He pulled it toward himself, shielding his body. Then, without thinking, he kicked through the rotted wooden panel behind the stall. It broke apart easily. He dropped low and crawled through tall grass, thorns tearing at his clothes, mud soaking into his skin, running for his life. He didn't stop until he reached a water tap behind the old pavilion. Shaking, covered in dirt, he washed himself as quickly as he could. That was when he saw him again. Novice Jack. He was sitting casually on the wooden steps of the pavilion, laughing softly, as if amused. "Damn," the novice said. "Just seeing that and you're already scared? One day you'll see people stabbing each other for real." Then he added, almost playfully, "This was just a knife. What would you do if someone pulled out a shotgun on stage?" Mr. Bird felt anger surge through his confusion. The words felt wrong, inappropriate, ominous. He walked away without responding. The next morning, he asked one of the senior monks about Novice Jack. The monk froze. After a long pause, he said quietly, "There's no novice named Jack here. I'm the youngest one in this temple." When Mr. Bird insisted, describing the face, the voice, the name, the monk led him behind the old pavilion. There, rows of small urns lined the wall. The monk stopped at one. Mr. Bird's knees went weak. The photograph on the urn showed a shaved-headed boy. The same face. The monk explained that Novice Jack had died years earlier. As for the murder Mr. Bird heard in the restroom, the monk explained that the area used to be dense forest long before the temple expanded. Criminals often used it for illegal dealings, and sometimes spirits replay moments of violent death for those sensitive enough to perceive them. That was when Mr. Bird realized something chilling. The path he had taken that night should have been impassable, and that restroom had been abandoned for decades. But the story didn't end there. Novice Jack's words turned out to be a warning. At a later event, in broad daylight, two groups of teenagers rushed the stage, knives flashing. One boy was stabbed in the stomach. His body collapsed in front of Mr. Bird's keyboard. Blood spilled across the stage. One, thick, overwhelming. Mr. Bird stood frozen in shock. At another performance, the host, a soldier, became drunk and angry over delays. He stormed onto the stage with a shotgun and fired a warning shot. Pellets struck a bird perched in a tree behind the stage. Blood and feathers rained down, splashing against Mr. Bird's neck. The cold sensation made his heart drop, and suddenly he remembered Novice Jack's words. This was just a knife. What would you do if someone pulled out a shotgun? That night changed Mr. Bird forever. He no longer dismissed spirits as superstition. He learned to respect places and the unseen, because sometimes spirits don't appear to scare us. Sometimes they appear to warn us about the living. If you want to hear more true horror stories from Thailand, follow and subscribe to Tale After Dark. And when you're ready, the next story is already waiting in the dark.